Okay, I'm live. I see you, JJ. Thank you so much for popping in and saying hi. Um, I hope everything's working properly today. I make no promises that all of this is going to work right. Because life and all, it's just so wonderful like that. Um, but today I am covering a few things that I would like to talk about, um, which is this. Okay, hold on. Nope, that's wrong. Oh no, wait, is it? Hold on. I'm going to be covering mostly the history of Moses Ezekiel and oh nope, that was the right one. Okay, yep, I'm good. All right, so I've got an article I want to read, and then well, two articles technically. And then I have, the, a short video of someone who has the IQ of probably a toothpick from what I saw so far. And, then I also have an article about why this is kind of important to me. So, I figure we'll go ahead, get started with this. People will join in when they get to it. I do apologize though that I haven't been streaming as much on questions that need answers. Last week, I had to go to a doctor's appointment, and my ride did not bother putting my wheelchair into the vehicle, and that required me to do a lot more walking and standing than I should have. This it's been a week and a half, and I'm still having way too much pain from it. So my sorry ass, should have just done what was supposed to be the case of curling up in a ball and just not doing anything until further notice. But yeah, that's overrated, right? Totally overrated. So let's go ahead and jump into this and let's get to know who Moses Ezekiel was. He was born in 1844 and he passed away in 1917. I believe that would have made him 73 years old at the time of passing. Basic summary is Moses Ezekiel was one of the most celebrated sculptors of his day. His work, his works appearing in civic spaces, art museums, and universities across the world. Born in Richmond, I believe it was Richmond, Virginia, to a family of Spanish Jewish origin, Ezekiel was the first Jewish cadet to attend Virginia's Military Institute. And he fought at the Battle of New Market in 1864 during the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865. He later considered a career in medicine, but studied sculpture instead. In 1869, Ezekiel relocated to Berlin and won admittance to the Royal Academy there. 4 years later, he became the first non-German to win the school's prestigious art competition. For the rest of his life, working out of a studio in Rome, Ezekiel created sculpture, often by commission and for public display. He generally modeled in clay and either sculpted from marble or cast in bronze, creating heroic, lifelike portraits that meditated on such themes as religion, religious freedom, patriotism for both the United States and the Confederacy. He fashioned a bronze Thomas Jefferson statue for the city of Louisville, Kentucky, which I've been by. That is a beautiful statue. Like, there are so many statues across the United States that most people look at, can admire, and not realize this was the artist who created it. Um, was also replicated for the University of Virginia. He also created a memorial to his fellow cadets who fought at Newmarket, as well as a memorial to the Confederate soldiers buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Ezekiel was buried beneath it after his death in 1917. Um, this kind of I'm more pissed that they removed this statue from Arlington Cemetery, but the fact it was a statue and a grave marker, and this happened in 2023. They removed this statue, claiming it was racist. And we'll jump into that later, including a freaking video explaining why it was so racist. And it's going to be hard for me to keep my pie hole shut long enough for y'all to learn something about it, because I'm going to be actively pausing it and pointing out how stupid this is. So, Ezekiel was born October 28th in 1844, to the son of Catherine de Castro and Ezekiel and Jacob Ezekiel, a dry goods merchant who had settled in the city a decade earlier. His family was of Spanish Jewish origin. As a result of his parents' financial problems, he grew up primarily in the household of his maternal grandmother and step grandfather. Ezekiel attended local academies, but at the age of 12, he had begun working as a bookkeeper in his step grandfather's store. And interested in drawing and painting from a young age, he attempted his first sculpture, a clay bust of his father, when he was about 13. As a young man, he may have had liaisons with Isabel Johnson, a free African American who worked within the Ezekiel home and whose daughter was born in 1859. Ezekiel entered the Virginia Military Institute in 1862. The first cadet of Jewish descent during the Civil War, he fought alongside his fellow cadets at the battle on May 15th, 1864. The following year, he served with the Corps of Cadets in defense around Richmond. In 1866, he graduated from VMI, last in his class of 10. Ooh, so he was not very militarily inclined. I can understand that. It makes sense to me. Ezekiel returned to Richmond to work in his father's dry goods store, with some thoughts of becoming a physician. In 1867, he began attending anatomy class at the Medical College of Virginia. That first year, his father moved some of the family to Cincinnati, Ohio. Ezekiel soon joined them. There he began a serious study of sculpture. What they left out, okay, and I've read this in other articles, but they left this out. He had had a conversation with General Lee after the war, and he had told General Lee that he had been studying medicine, and but that he really liked doing art. And General Lee encouraged him to continue on his path to art and giving up medicine. I'm not quite sure why this place decided to leave that out, but multiple articles I have read stated that General Lee um, was the one. I hold on. Let me double check my fact. I want to make sure it was really General Lee. One second while I re-Google this. Hold on. I want to double check that date. Um, Yes, it was Robert E. Lee who pushed him to go back into art and not to follow medicine. Just want to point this out. Let me grab a drink really quick. Holy crap. Reading is making me thirsty. So, um, yeah. So, I don't know why this article felt the need to leave that out, but it's true. Um, in 1869, Ezekiel sailed for Berlin, Prussia, where sculptor Rudolf Simering offered him a place in his studio. After gaining admission to the prestigious Royal Academy, Ezekiel studied life modeling under Albert Wolff. In 1873, Ezekiel entered his bas relief Israel in the prestigious Michael Beer Prix de Rome. Sorry, had to switch to the French pronunciation. Competition at the Academy. He was the first non German to win the award, which provided a stipend for a year's study in Rome. Later that year, the Independent Order of, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I want to say B'nai Brith, Brith commissioned Ezekiel to sculpt a piece of display for Philadelphia during the United States centennial celebration in 1876. What are you on about? I'm talking about Moses Ezekiel, famous sculptor who also served in the Civil War. Okay, what happened to him? Well, a lot of people forgot what he is known for and how famous he was and the life that he lived. Which was? You can listen to the podcast when I'm done. I'm not repeating. Why do you have 12,086 notifications? Where? 1,286 notifications. Where's that? 88. The parentheses. Oh, on YouTube? Why do you have so many? Because I don't always check my notifications. Sorry about that. Gotta love my son. Oh, stipend. Okay, thank you for the correct pronunciation, JJ. I appreciate it. Um, the Centennial in 1876. Religious Liberty depicts a woman representing liberty, flanked on one side by an American eagle, crushing intolerance, and on the other side, other by faith, a youth holding an eternal flame. Um, oh, okay. After arriving in Rome in 1874, Ezekiel carved the work from a solid block of Carrara marble. I very well may have pronounced that wrong. It could be Serrar. Well, either way, it's this word right here. I hope it's large enough. That kind of marble. In 1879, Ezekiel established his studio in Rome, in ancient baths of Diocletian. Oh, hi, Ms. D. E. I'm alive. How are you? Not that I can tell. Thank you. So far, pretty good. We got JJ in the chat. Yes, yes, he was. Um, Gotta wait for the comments to come in. Ah, yeah. I want to see some pictures of the cutie pie. Well, that's fine. You can learn about Moses Ezekiel. We just got into his time in Europe, where he started his own studio for sculptures. Y- no, he was not. He was just a cadet. But after speaking with Robert E. Lee after the war and telling him how he was working in medicine but really enjoyed doing art, and Robert E. Lee kind of gave him some advice about following into the art world instead of medicine. And thanks to that, we have him well known for various sculptures and statues around the world. He was buried in Arlington Cemetery. Oh, I sorry, I forgot to add you to the external. JJ couldn't hear you.
Uh,
I apologize. I am so sorry. I forgot to transition it so your voice would come through to the audience. My
so
bad.
they missed. Now I got to redo the whole thing again.
Go ahead, redo your intro.
Okay. Now I forget how I did came in. I know I came in screaming. I know that. Welcome everybody to Crazy Bee's first episode using the new format. We're so happy that you could join us. This is her gig on Monday and Wednesdays, doing questions that need answers. And as you know, we have many questions, many, and we're looking for many, many answers. JJ, I apologize for yesterday's craziness. I'm glad you could join us. Uh, we laughed afterwards. We laughed this morning so bad that we started crying again. It was so freaking funny.
I
Um,
cut one of the videos, part of the video down into a short
uh
on
huh.
YouTube. And
Yes.
oh my God, people have been liking it.
Yes. We're very pleased with as much craziness as there was yesterday. It was just one of the funniest things. And it took until the whole show was over that I realized that Crazy Bee told me that it was me the whole time and not
I
her.
provided proof.
Yes. And that her and you in the chat was like all up against me being the I was the one that was in the wrong here. That I can't even explain what happened. I have really no idea what happened.
The 5
Uh
second lag and the electrical
yes,
interference, for whatever reason it
reason.
felt the
Yes.
need to happen. It wasn't your fault about the electrical interference
Right.
or the 5 second lag, but it was on your end that
And right.
you were getting the lag, you were receiving it, and it's like, well, geez. Like, oh, JJ said, "All good, audio latency tech day." But
And
here
then
we
to
are
ha-
today, and it's perfect.
right.
Go figure.
And then to have Techno Ghost come in.
Oh god,
That's
that
our
was
new
funny.
Yes, that's going to be one of our new additions to the program is Techno Ghost. Uh but I'm actually on my tablet laying in bed just listening. So I came in with a huge woohoo in the beginning, congratulating Crazy Bee on her formatting and the new programming style that we have in place. So, a lot of things she'll be doing, various topics almost on anything. Some things may carry over from wrecked sisters that maybe needs more in-depth analysis that she could do over here. uh, she may have special guests. She may have her crazy co-host on there. So
I'm
you
thinking about inviting Arby to do his red light research,
Oh, that'd be
on,
cool.
one of the days that he's available.
That would
So,
be cool.
it might have to be a Sunday before or after Wrecked Sisters, depending,
Mm-hmm.
because Sundays usually work best for him.
Right.
So, there might be special episodes
Right.
randomly, and I'll
Yes.
put out notice in advance if I can.
And so we're very pleased with I think the new formatting, the way things are working out. So we just got to get the audience and the numbers up. And again, please, we need the likes and we need the follows. Uh, we would definitely like you to subscribe. That would be fantastic. But minimally, please hit the like button and please hit the follow button. That gets the algorithm going and gets us boosted in the analysis.
Algorithm.
Yeah, the algorithm and the analyses
Well,
of that.
JJ was the first like on both videos,
Oh,
so I'm
cool.
absolutely
Awesome.
happy with that.
Awesome. We appreciate that. So, okay, I'm going to just listen. And it's pretty cool that as the co host on Rex Sisters and being in the studio that I just could pop in and just
Yep.
interrupt and ask any kind of question, but I'll try to be quiet and just listen.
Well, no, but the more questions asked, the more we might get answers. That's,
There
again,
you
the whole
go.
point,
There
questions
you
that
go.
need answers.
There you go.
So,
So,
if there are questions, please ask them, and
will
I will
do.
do my best to answer and find it. I did point out earlier that this article left out that Ezekiel had spoken with Robert E. Lee before choosing to go into art as a
Wow,
sculptor
that's something.
instead.
Yeah, that's
But
something.
the it's the joys of how our society has turned everything racist and everything hateful.
And I don't know at what part you'll say this, but his statue was torn down, correct?
I already did bring it up and I have a full article on it, and I
Okay.
have a YouTube video of someone trying to defend it as racist and that it should have been torn down.
Wow.
And I am not don't know how long I'll be able to keep quiet, but I will do my best not to overly interrupt. And I believe that video is all of 7 minutes long.
Okay.
So,
But you're gonna
um,
play it. We haven't seen it yet,
yes.
correct? Okay.
Nope, it's
All
I'm
right.
gonna play it at the end. I want everyone to have the full history of Ezekiel before I go
Gotcha.
into the idiots in society who thought that his statue was racist, but it was not just a statue, it was also his, grave marker.
Oh, wow.
They desecrated his
Seriously.
grave, and don't get me started on what they did to, General Forrest down in, Tennessee. They absolutely and bullshit, and I kid you not, dug up him, his wife, and a horse and removed them because it was offensive to people.
What?
Yes, ma'am. That's another day's episode. I
What?
kid you not,
They
General
dug up they dug up a horse too? Like,
'cause it
wait.
was part of a Confederate marker. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
This is how bad this con anti-history movement has gotten, and it's why I'm drawing attention to it, and I kinda hope that the, people I follow that are historians, amateur and professional alike, on X are watching this, because I would love for them to, at some point, maybe give comments or feedback, and I do want to use a lot more of their material to talk
Right.
about this.
Right. This is
And
that's
again,
crazy. I mean,
what even
so
prompted this is because I made a comment about how so little people actually know who this person is,
right.
and there was a comment in return like, "Thanks to you, I went and looked it up." And so I decided to turn this into a learning experience for all of the viewers.
So this is almost like, anybody that you don't like for a particular reason, I could go and desecrate the statue, their grave marker, or rip down
Their
a
grave in
statue.
general.
Yes. I mean, this is
Yes, and
who
this is
who
again where I know you weren't thrilled with me when I had said it before about not tearing down the statues of, George Floyd, but I am against tearing down all statues. They exist for a reason, and we can learn from them, good or bad,
yeah.
and it's
Well,
history.
and we
We
can get
have to
into that at the
teach.
end, I guess,
Yeah,
because
and this is again where
yeah,
I didn't even like the ideas of all of Stalin's statues and stuff
right.
being torn down, Mussolini's statues being destroyed. I get why some people do that, but you're also destroying and editing your history because of
But
it.
then but then you get into, there should be statues of so many people then. I mean, the George Floyd, we can talk about that later. I mean, at the end, I don't
He was
wanna.
not a
Yeah,
hero,
I know he
but
wasn't.
because of his existence, we had a whole shifting in our society for either good or bad, depends on your perspective. But
Yeah,
it was societal altering event over his life. And
well,
it is something because if those statues are torn down, no matter what, you can't erase the fact it happened.
I
And
agree.
I don't like playing the, well, they did it to us, we can do it to them thing. I
I don't look
just
at it, yeah, I don't look at it that way. I think it should have just never been done in the first place.
well, yeah, I agree. There should have
You know,
never been a
the
statue to
same
him,
way. So
but
how
because there is,
what's your take then on them ripping up the BLM street in Washington? You know, they finally ripped
it
that up.
should not have been as no, the street should not have been marked up. A
Right.
statue, a plaque, a memorial thing, fine. Do not, because they're going to have to repave the street in 10 years anyways. It was a waste of money.
Mhm.
You want something more permanent, put up something more permanent that's not
Mhm.
going to be driven over every day and have to be maintained until it finally gets paved over.
Well, how many statues of George Floyd were there, do you know?
Nothing extremely big. Let me confirm this, and then we'll get back into the history
Yes, I
here.
apologize. See what trouble I cause when I come in? Yes, Crazy Bee and I had a long discussion about whether or not he should have had a statue.
Um, there are multiple, but the largest one is 700 pound bronze statue in New Jersey. That is the largest one,
Wow.
and that's according to AI. And in this case,
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
not digging too deep into it.
That's fine. We can look at it later. All right, I apologize. Go ahead
Oh,
on
no,
with
but it's
the
a good
Ezekiel.
point, and this is,
Yeah,
again, where we can't pick and choose our history.
right.
What good or bad, we need it represented, and we should be looking at it from a neutral standpoint while discussing what was good about it, what was bad about it.
I
And there
wonder
is good and bad to everything.
everything, right. I wonder I don't even know, does Trump have statues? Does
I
Biden?
believe he does.
He does? Okay.
Yes.
That's
I
we can
don't
look at
think they are on a monumental level.
mhm.
But again, there's always the busts of the different presidents and stuff and the
Right, I've seen
paintings, and
those, right.
yeah,
But
those
like
are going
for
to be a
example,
given.
in my city, the mayor had been well liked, and he had a particular stance that he always used. You know, took. Say he
Mhm.
was, reviewing a uh, groundbreaking ceremony. When he was done, he always stood in a certain position. His head was bent. He had a hand in a pocket. Blah blah. They did a statue of him and put him on the city county steps. And we were there a couple weeks ago, and it's still there after. Oh my gosh, he died
Oh,
around
I like JJ's
1987.
opinion here. Hold on. Trump will have a statue on Mount Rushmore.
There are people that talk about that.
Sorry, you were saying the
Yeah,
mayor passed away in what year?
I in around 1987 or so, 88 maybe,
Mhm.
and the statue has been there that whole time. It's like a bronze statue, and I mean it's full figure, uh, almost the exact size of him. And
Mhm.
as I said, he's in what he always stood in a certain position with his hand in his pocket, and I mean it's a beautiful statue. And as I said, we were down there a couple weeks ago, and to know that it was still there, looking over, the steps of the city county building, it's pretty cool. But
Yep.
it's surprising that things have. There's a case of something that lasted that long. Uh, so go ahead, hit it, Crazy
Yep.
B.
All
Exec.
right. So I'm going to restart this paragraph because I was only halfway through the sentence when D come in having
Yeah,
fun.
and I wish
So
you would have heard me going crazy over her new format. So hold on, I got to give her again and another
hold on. I think I have a
woo.
round of applause. Nope. Hold on. Hold on.
Excuse me. Here, I'll go with it. Woo! Yay, Crazy Bee! Hit it, girl. No lag today, baby.
All right. So in 1879, Ezekiel established his studio in Rome at the ancient baths of Diocletian. It quickly became a meeting place for other artists, political figures, and members of the Italian royal family. Okay, this guy was a Confederate soldier, Jewish by birth and I believe by practice, and he is now. famous as could be in Rome. Love it. Um, Ezekiel's close friends included composer Franz Liszt, Gustav Cardinal von Hohenlohe. I pray I pronounced that right. There's a lot of H's right there.
Mhm.
It's spelled Hohenlohe. Hohenlohe?
Hohenlohe. Hohenlohe.
Hohenlohe?
Yeah,
Okay, that might have been the
Hohenlohe.
pronunciation too. I am not very good with the artist world. This is something maybe I could get Lady Hamilton to maybe look
Oh,
at
yeah,
if she
that would
doesn't
be cool.
mind.
Yeah, she would be
Um,
cool.
because she really does do art on a level that I never could. But maybe she'll be interested in this and maybe give a deeper dive into it on her channel one day.
Mhm.
Um, because she can pronounce these so much better than I can. So, both of whom sat for portrait busts. Ulysses S. Grant, the financier J.P. Morgan. I'm not doing the Pierpont. Well, I just did. That was stupid. Um, and the Virginia writer and diplomat Nelson Page, numbered among Ezekiel's many American visitors, for some of whom he created portrait busts and funerary effigies. Um, got to get a language translator. Yeah,
Mhm.
I totally agree, JJ. I'm pretty good with languages in general. Um, because I've taken, well, anything of the Latin dialects, your French, Spanish, Italian, I can handle most of those pronunciations. I know a little bit of Swedish, so I kind of have a grasp on how to pronounce it. Anything else, and I'm just going to be like tongue twisted, can't do it. It just
I
don't
think
work.
they have apps for that.
Oh, I'm sure they do, but me being the goofball I am gonna
I
have fun with this and
we
just let
enjoy
y'all laugh
Yes.
at me.
We enjoy the attempt.
Yes. Ezekiel's sculptures follow the classical lines of his early German training, a romantic, elaborate, and ornate style dependent on heavy lines and bold mass. He modeled his works in clay, usually from living models, formed them into plaster, then carved the sculpture from blocks of marble or sent them to a foundry to be cast in bronze. Most of his more than 200 surviving pieces, wow, in his lifetime, 200 are surviving. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Were portraits of individuals. Some of Ezekiel's works employed religious themes, including the bronze head of David from 1893 and a recumbent marble Christ in the tomb in 1896. In 1899, he completed a bronze bust of Rabbi Isaac Meyer Wise, or Mayer Wise. It could be Meyer or Mayer. Oh, no, the A becomes before the Y, so it'd be Mayer, not Meyer. Y would become before. Anyways, an advocate of Reform Judaism in the United States. Always proud of his heritage, Ezekiel considered himself an artist who was also Jewish, but he did not want to be labeled a Jewish sculptor, which ironically they did in so many articles I have officially read. Um, Ezekiel secured enduring fame as a sculptor through his historic lifetime. Life through his historic lifelike portraits. I apologize. In 1877, he accepted a commission from W. Cor- Corcoran. Corcoran could be either pronunciation, could be with the C's or the S's. Um, for 11 marble statues of famous artists through the ages, including Phidias, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Thomas Crawford, for display in exterior niches of the Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. And I've been by that building, and I did not know that those statues were done by Moses Ezekiel, by the way. I've been by that building. I was in eighth grade. middle school. Just it was a field trip that we took to Washington D.C. So wow.
I don't think you pay attention when you look at those, any
Oh wait,
statue
no,
or busts.
that building. No, because that building later got moved. I'm sorry. It must the the building was still there, but the museum
Yeah,
later moved. Okay. I
yeah.
was gonna
But
say
oftentimes when you see statues or busts, I think busts are probably easier that you'd notice who did it. But on statues, you typically don't pay attention to who the artist was.
yeah.
And I think we skip that oftentimes on many things. I'm very surprised, and hopefully you'll address it at the end, that there are still 200 of his statues left that they didn't attempt to destroy because he crafted them.
Yeah. JJ is sending a clip to Lady Hamilton.
Mhm. Awesome.
I really appreciate that so much. Yeah, most people do not pay attention. I love looking at the structural. I okay, architects like the older architects,
Hmm.
the cathedrals, the Gothic era
Oh,
are
that,
my
yeah,
favorite.
so are mine. Hmm.
There is a cathedral in Washington D.C. that has a Darth Vader gargoyle.
Oh, wow.
If you ever get to Washington D.C., go to the largest cathedral there, and one of its gargoyles is Darth Vader. Very interesting little fact I learned back in school
Hmm.
while on that class trip. Uh, so back to this. So the museum did move in 1897, and Ezekiel sculptures were later installed at the Norfolk Botanical Gardens. In 1899, Ezekiel completed the city of Louisville, Kentucky's a large scale bronze of Thomas Jefferson standing atop the Liberty Bell. I have been by this statue. It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And reading the Declaration of Independence, a statue he replicated for the University of Virginia and unveiled 11 years later. Collab with you and Lady Hamilton on this subject on her show. Ooh, that is a very good idea.
Hmm.
That is. Um, his other public commissions include bronzes of Stonewall Jackson for Charleston, West Virginia, chapter of the United Daughters of Confederacy, which a lot of people have a fit about. Um, John Warwick Daniel, U.S. Congressman and Senator from Lynchburg, and Edgar Allan Poe in 1915. He died 2 years after he did the Edgar Allan Poe one, by the way, because he only lived till 1917 at the ripe old age of 73.
Wow.
Um, for the Poe well, again, if I don't know exactly what day he died, so it's a rough estimate of 73. He might have been 72, but depending on what day did he die before or after his
Hmm.
birthday. So, Ezekiel retained his love for Virginia and the Confederate cause all of his life. Um, and the expressed disappointment when his designs for monuments in Richmond honoring Robert E. Lee and Confederate soldiers and sailors were rejected. In 1903, the Virginia Military Institute installed Virginia Mourning Her Dead as a memorial to the cadets who had fought at Newmark. Ezekiel had modeled the figure while a student as a student in Berlin, and he completed the cast in bronze in 1900. His statue was of a soldier entitled Southerner was unveiled in 1910 at the Cemetery of the Confederate Prisoners of War at Johnson Island, Ohio. I've never been there. Ezekiel returned to the United States on several occasions for unveiling and to visit his family and friends in Virginia. His last such visit occurred in 1914 when he attended the dedication to the of his monumental bronze memorial to the Confederate soldiers buried in Arlington Cemetery. Throughout his career, Ezekiel received numerous honors, including the Cross of Merit for Art and Science from the Grand Duke Saxe Meningen in 1887, and a Golden Cross of the House of Hohenzollern from the German Emperor in 1893. King Victor Emmanuel III declared Ezekiel a cavalier ufficial del Corona de Italia. So he was the king of Italy and he made him officer of the crown. There we go. In 1906, the sculptor was known as Sir Moses Ezekiel as early as 1892. The origin of the title is unclear. The sources cite variously a knighthood bestowed by the King of Italy and by German emperors. The German emperor Ezekiel may have adopted the title himself after receiving one of his prestigious awards. Um, Later years, in 1909, the Italian government reclaimed the baths of Diocletian, and Ezekiel moved to a new studio in the Tower of Belisarius. During World War I, he served on a committee that distributed Red Cross funds to Italians in need. He also helped coordinate shipments and supplies to soldiers on the front. Overworked during the cold, damp winters of 1916 through 1917, Ezekiel developed pneumonia and died in his studio on March 27th, 1927. So it was just shy. It was about 6 months shy of his 73rd birthday. So he would have been 72. He left incomplete his final work, a statue of VMI's first superintendent, Francis Henry Smith. Ezekiel was interred temporarily in the city cemetery near San Lorenzo neighborhood in Rome. In ordinance with his wishes, March 31st, 1921, he was buried among his Confederate comrades in Arlington National Cemetery at the base of his towering monument. The permanent collection of many institutions, including the VMI Museum, the Cincinnati Art Museum, the Skirball Central Center, Cultural Center at Hebrew Union College, Los Angeles, feature examples of Ezekiel's works. In 1985, the National Museum of American Jewish History in Philadelphia organized a major traveling exhibition. So, that is his basic. I mean, dude had an amazing life. If you look at all this, and it took me a minute to read through it, but his life was just so
And
amazing.
he was the consistency of the works that he did, how
Hmm.
busy he must have been in
Yeah.
the studio nonstop almost, it seems,
Yep.
for the volume of work that he put out uh, in his 72 years. I mean, not seven, but I don't
Yeah.
know what. Do you know what age
Well,
he
he started
started,
doing art
Crazy
when he
B?
was a child. He started doing
Okay.
art and playing with art as a child,
Uh
but
huh.
in professional years, I believe he was probably let's see, it was in the 18 almost 1870. So he was just shy of 30 years old when he
Oh,
started really
really?
doing art, really
Wow.
professionally doing art.
So for 40 years, I mean, that's like a late start in at 30 almost. So in 40
Yeah.
years, and that's the 200 statues. That doesn't,
That still
right,
remain
right,
intact, but various other ones may have been lost over the years,
right.
and his incomplete works.
That doesn't include, does that include the busts? Is that included with the statue?
Yes.
Okay, so wow,
Hmm.
that's a lot.
He was a very busy man, but
Hmm.
very steadfast in his beliefs.
Right.
And they call him a lost cause,
Hmm.
um, because he stood by the beliefs of what led why the Confederates were right to want to
Uh-huh.
secede.
Right.
And this goes back to what we were being taught wrong. The main cause of the war had nothing to do with slavery. It had to do with federal government overreach, tariffs, destroying the Southern finances and economies, and all to support Northern industries.
Hmm.
And then they're trying to force the South to become industrialized. And again, I have tons of historical documents that I can pull up of even Northerners having more negative attitude towards slaves and freed slaves, the freed people,
Right.
than the Southerners did. There are hundreds of letters, thousands of letters, books, biographies from soldiers and people of the North who had zero tolerance and did not want anything to do with them.
Right.
And they were more prejudiced and segregatory than the South was in many cases. So this
And
is
a lot of
again where
people, yeah.
history hasn't taught us, and they call him a lost causer, which really isn't true. The federal government should not be overreaching to the point that states don't want to be part of the union, and when they try to leave, it's like, nope, we're going to hold you at gunpoint.
Right. Right.
So again, that's a whole nother ball game, a whole nother documentary day. But in the meantime, let's cover this next article. I will briefly do this. I know I would probably go for another hour, but I am still very sore today. So
What do
this
you
was his
sore from? Wait,
statue.
what do you sore from?
I'm still hurting from last week Monday at that doctor's
Oh, when you
appointment.
got, yeah. I thought
Hmm.
maybe it was from laughing so hard.
Well, that too, but I'm
Uh-huh.
still having a hard time standing upright because of my back. So,
Yeah, I hear you. I'm sorry you're in pain.
oh, I'll live as
Yeah.
always.
So, so you don't want me to get you belly laughing again, or snorting, or
Let's try to minimize that
screaming,
today.
screaming,
That's
I
what
need my
tomorrow's for.
inhaler, I need my inhaler, or my face hurts, my face hurts. You don't want to do that again?
I can tomorrow. Let me
Okay.
have a day of relaxing and then we can get to it.
Okay, you got it, girl.
So, this is the statue. I know it looks small to me, but I hope it's large enough for you guys in
Oh, it
Arlington
looks,
Cemetery.
yeah.
I don't know if
Where did they put it? Did they put it anywhere, or what did they just
that's
say?
what I'm hoping to find out by reading this.
Okay, go ahead.
So as of December 22nd, 2023, the bronze elements of the Confederate memorial were removed from Arlington National Cemetery and are currently being stored in a secure Department of Defense facility in Virginia. This is so devastating.
Why don't we
Um,
petition Trump to get it put back?
oh, he did. He's working on
Oh,
that.
he's
It was already
okay.
ordered that all the statues removed from federal ground have to be
I
returned.
thought so. Okay.
But his renaming of the bases of Union soldiers with the same last names pissed me off.
And why was that?
Fort Bragg is not named after the Confederate soldier with the last name Bragg, the
I see.
Confederate leader, military.
Right.
I think he was a general, last name Bragg. No,
Okay.
they did not restore them to their original names. He pacified the woke whiny crybabies with giving them northern names that were the same
Oh.
instead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Wow.
There was like 6 or 7 forts that were renamed.
Okay.
The names were taken away by the whiny left, woke crybabies. And then Trump was said, "Well, we got to restore them to their names," but he failed to mention publicly that he was swapping it for Union names instead of Confederate names that they
Wow.
originally were. So yeah, I hold that against Trump, like I do Operation Warp Speed. I hold those two things against him.
Right.
But yeah, um, for background information on the process, please visit this page. Okay, so the history of um Confederate Memorial embodies the complex and contested legacy of the Civil War at Arlington National Cemetery and American culture generally. It is not contested. A bunch of crybabies.
It's all right. Control
Mm.
yourself. Control yourself.
It just,
I know.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
You want
So
to
they're
keep. You
saying
want to
that
make
this is
sure that this
contested.
stays. You want to make sure this stays posted on YouTube. So.
I know, but
Yeah.
this is, you know what? I'll let you guys read this.
No, I go ahead, read it, and get it out of your.
You sound really far away from your tablet.
I okay. Go ahead and read it because it's. I mean, is it that long?
Actually,
A little bit.
kinda.
No. Do you want me to read
Okay.
it?
I'll read it. I just
Okay.
I have a feeling I'm going to be running my mouth.
That's so well then just read it and don't run your mouth. Just read it.
Okay. But you sound like
I'll
you are
stop.
really.
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
stop you if you get out of control.
okay.
All right.
And I found out why you sounded far away. My earbud was falling out of my ear.
Oh
Um,
yeah, see how I always get blamed.
no,
It's
I just
always
said you
me.
sound
It's all
really far
no,
away.
it's me.
I just said you sounded.
I know, but it's always me. It's not that there's something wrong on your end. It's always D. What is, like, where's your microphone at? Is it up close? Where do you have it pinned at? Where's this at?
Well,
Where's
I'll tell
did you
you, yesterday I had on my really good overhead headphones, um, that there's no way I was missing
Oh, okay.
where something was. Yesterday, I had on my Steel Series. Those are like $180 headphones
Yeah.
that are, yeah, they're really
Okay.
good ones over my head, not an earbud in my ear like I'm using right now. Oh,
Uh-huh.
lady says to contact her by DM. She has Mondays. She can fit you in. All right, I will reach
Oh,
out to
that's
her and
awesome.
see if she wants to do a deeper dive into Moses Ezekiel,
That would be cool.
and we can
Crazy B.
discuss his art.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
Thanks,
um,
JJ. Thanks, JJ,
thank
for
you.
hooking her up.
I appreciate it. I will reach out to her in DMs later tonight. Um, in the 19, oh, is that on, is she on Discord, or, should I reach out on X? That's a good question. Um, so in 1900, Congress authorized Confederate remains to be reinterred at Arlington Cemetery. Okay, on Discord, I'll find her. Um, and they um authorized Confederate remains to be reinterred at the Arlington National Cemetery, which designated a special section for them in what is now known as Section 16. The Confederate memorial was erected there in 1914. Um, I love how they didn't mention who created the statue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, It was in 1914. By the early 1900s, it had become tradition to establish a new section at Arlington for the dead from a particular war, followed by the commemorative monument in Section 22, where many soldiers and sailors from the Spanish American War are buried. Um, and the Rough Riders Monument memorialized that conflict after fallen World War One service members were repatriated and buried in sections 18 and 19. The Argonne Cross was dedicated to Section 18 in this sense. The creation of the Confederate section and the memorial followed customary practice at Arlington. However, to understand more fully why Confederate graves are at a former Union cemetery, damn it, my hands, son of a,
Calm
give me a
down.
minute.
It's all right.
I accidentally closed it all out.
It's fine.
Shit. 1 second. I got to find it.
Technical dif- Technical difficulties are occurring. Please be patient with us. It's all
Oh my
right.
God. Um, where's my history? Shit.
It's all right. Language, please.
Found it.
There you go. Take your time. Just technical support is needed. That's all.
There we go. Well, now let me share it again.
Now she's back.
Oh my
Don't get
God,
me
what a
laughing. My stomach
day.
already hurts. Don't start.
Okay. However, to more understand more fully why Confederate graves are at a former Union cemetery and to be interpreted as interpret the memorial symbolism, it is necessary to delve more deeply into the historical context. One, The Confederates never were allowed to secede. They are still part of the American Union. They are
Calm
Americans.
down. Take it down a level. Calm down. It's
They're
okay.
Americans. They deserve to be buried on any American soil
It's
that,
okay.
yes.
It's
Anyways.
okay. Go ahead. It's okay.
This is the stuff that pisses me off.
I know.
Okay, you
But
go
it,
right ahead, JJ. It pisses me off because they act like they were traitors to America when they were
America.
just upholding the Constitution
Right.
the way they were, that the way they believed it needed to be done.
Right.
It's like, seriously, like,
But as you
mm,
said, the way things are being taught and not all the information is being shared, then
presented.
correct.
Yes.
Then you see how.
But this is the Arlington National Cemetery. This is a government one run website full
But,
of BS
right,
propaganda.
because we know why. It's the woke left, right?
I
Um,
know. I
how
know.
many, how many, how many areas were infiltrated? The Department of Education, Homeland Security, the FBI, the CIA. I mean, you see just how bad it's been. Uh, and so,
Mhm.
is it any wonder that this happens? I mean, look at the piece that we did, remember, on the museums that would,
I know.
remember?
I
And
know.
so, is this any other surprise? But it is very discerning that
It's
that
very
people,
disconcerting.
yeah, that people make such a big deal of this without knowing what they're talking about,
Mhm.
and they're just like, rip it down, tear it down. It's ridiculous.
And again, here it goes into, by the turn of the 20th century, Arlington had become a truly national cemetery, a transformation that occurred amidst reconciliation between the North and the South.
Hmm.
That happened right after the Civil War.
Hmm.
But, it took them 20 more years. But, just, yeah, anyways, almost 40 years before they would actually allow Confederate soldiers to be buried in Arlington.
Hmm.
But still, God, I'm so congested. Between the North and the South, enduring racial inequalities, mm, um, between and a new war, reconstruction, the U.S. government's efforts to reunify the nation at gunpoint. By the way, reunify at gunpoint. Um, the transformation, the South's former, it was not slave based society, effectively ended in 1877. It was an agricultural society, not slave based. And let's not forget that all the slaves came through Rhode Island. Just going to point that out. 90, I think it was like something like, what was it, 70 or 80% of the slaves that came to America were processed through Rhode Island. Anyone want to remember Rhode Island's part of this? Or New York's ports being part of it? No, they, sorry, I'm going on a
Exactly.
tangent. I'm going to shut up.
It's okay. You're at least providing some context to it, and if people
Yeah.
are truly interested, they'll even that whole piece, Crazy Bee, is probably warranted for some type of discussion. I'll bet you many people don't know all that
Yeah.
that
Slaves were
part of
not
it.
delivered directly to the South.
Right.
They were delivered to the northern ports and then sold all the way along the coast.
Mm-hmm.
New York had slaves also during the Civil War. Northern
And
states still had slavery, even though history tells us they were against it. But
right,
many of them didn't give up their own. So, but okay, back on task. We're talking about Arlington Cemetery. So, I'm sorry. This
you're
is what I mean
good.
by history.
Yeah, well, you're
Rutherford
good.
B.
And I'm
Sorry,
saying
go
that,
ahead.
and I'm suggesting that on these issues that you bring up or these topics, jot them
Far
down
more
and
context.
and let's develop them into another project, assign, because I find this part fascinating. And then you bring up something else, how many people didn't knew about the slaves, and you could talk about what the real issue of the Civil War was about. How many people know that? It's
Mhm.
just, you know it was slavery. That's, ask any
What
man
the
on the
schools
street.
teach,
Right,
but
exactly.
I remember back in, even when I was in school, they were still teaching that slavery was part of the reason, but there was these other causes for it as well, and they
Mm,
would talk about, the, separation of powers, um, the, fact that the North was very upset about slaves and former
right.
slaves being allowed
Yep.
to vote.
Yep.
They did not want that, but they make it sound like the South was the racist ones,
Correct. And so
but
that would be a
they were
good
mad that
topic.
the South was
Yep.
counting them in the, what is that? The
Census.
censuses.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were trying to count them
Yep.
as people,
Right.
and the North didn't like it because it would be an unfair balance in
Correct.
population and income and distribution of representatives.
That's exactly right. So I think that would be a good segment for you to do as well.
I would love to do it, but
Yep.
I've that's something that's gonna take a lot more preparation for.
Mhm.
That would take me a few months to actually get everything prepared for.
Wow.
There is so much. I actually follow this, channel on X called The Slave Narrative, where
Okay.
they reveal passed on stories from news articles and biographies of
Mhm.
people who were slaves, good or bad masters. Some of them were absolutely adoring of their masters or the slave owners, their owners, because they were treated so well.
Uh-huh.
And I was talking with an amateur historian last night, and I know, you were in the chat when I sent it to no, you had
Right.
left the chat when I sent it to Faye.
Mhm.
Grok on X told her the reason slaves were loyal to their masters was because of Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, I did read that. Yeah, uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I know.
Bullshit.
Right. I know. That when I read that, that was, yeah, very interesting. All right.
So, I
I
do need to get through this
yeah.
article so I can get to the video.
All right. I apologize for getting you off task.
Well, no, it's a topic I've always been fascinated with since
Right.
middle school. I have loved studying and learning about the Civil War era and World War II era. In
Mhm.
World War II, I don't even touch nearly as much as I do into the Civil War.
Okay.
Further back in history, I'm fascinated. And it's not because of the war tactics, I'm talking cultural history
Mhm.
and how it's been manipulated. And so this is a very near and dear special era of history that I love.
Mhm.
And I think I've told you before that we have a Civil War era cemetery just a block from where I live.
Right. Right.
So I this is my
Right
jam.
up your
This is
alley. Yep.
my happy
Happy
moment to
place.
talk about.
Right.
And this is stuff again I wouldn't want to drag into Rex Sisters because I know I go on tangents and it could end up being a 3-hour video.
Right. Right.
So, but I'm going to get back to this article, I promise, right now. Where did I leave off? Where's Rutherford B. Hayes? I saw his name. Um, where did it go? Why did I just lose my spot?
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
here it
looking
is.
to, there it is.
I found it
President,
in
okay.
1877. Um, that year, President Rutherford B. Hayes agreed to withdraw federal troops from the southern states, allowing for sectional reconciliation, but also the systemic disenfranchisement of African Americans enforced by white violence and racial segregation in the South. Shall we talk about how bad it was in the North? Everyone want to forget how bad segregation was in the North as well? But back to the point. In 1989, mobilization for war against Spain and the United States expanding global power reinforced the sense of national unity. It took another war. Lovely. Okay. At least among many white Americans.
It's all right.
Mm,
Quit percolating.
I just want to know why these people feel they have to speak for dead former slaves on what their opinion of being American, a unified
Was.
American
Right.
was.
Right.
Oh, I'll DM her on X then. Okay, sounds good. Well, okay. So, in this context, the U.S. government reassessed its policies on Confederate burials. Although the tomb of the unknown of the tomb of the Civil War unknowns likely contained the remains of both Union and Confederate dead, Arlington had been a U.S. Army cemetery. Like the Confederates weren't part of the United States. And for years after the Civil War, Confederate veterans could not be buried there. However, December 14th, 1898, 4 days after the Spanish American War ended, President William McKinley kicked off his Peace Jubilee nationwide tour with a speech in Atlanta in which he proclaimed the spirit of fraternity. In the spirit of fraternity, we should share with you in the care of the graves of Confederate soldiers. Sectional feelings no longer holds back the love we feel for each other. The old flag again waves over us in peace with new glories. Um,
It's all right.
I
You're
know
good. You're
I'm
good.
doing my damn best to ignore the propaganda and keep reading, but as you can tell, every time I stop, take a breath, it's not because of my asthma. It's because you can tell it's propaganda. I'm
Exactly.
calling it propaganda.
Right.
Notably in notably in the spirit of fraternity did not include African Americans. In 1871, a group of black soldiers had petitioned the War Department to relocate the graves of hundreds of United States colored troops from the USCT from the lower cemeteries where they were buried alongside former slaves and poor whites. Oh, funny how in death we're all equal,
Mm-hmm.
especially if we're
Right.
poor.
Right.
Um, um, Sorry, I lost my spot. To the main cemetery near Arlington House, where white Civil War veterans lay at rest. The War Department denied the petition. Arlington National Cemetery would remain segregated until 1948, when President Harry S. Truman desegregated the armed forces by executive order. Now, here's another funny thing that people don't talk about are the hundreds, if not thousands, of former and current slaves who fought in the Confederate Army. There were so many. There was one slave who defied his owner and joined the Confederate Army and could have gotten in serious trouble for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't talk about that. No one talks about how many current and former slaves joined the Confederate Army to fight for the South because that it was not the South was not fighting to keep slavery. It was trying to get the North to quit forcing its will upon them. And again, the separation of federal versus state and local all plays into this.
Mm-hmm.
It is just heartbreaking that all of these brave men fighting for what was right. And now, mind you, the segregation was also for blacks who fought in the Union as well. And there were soldiers who fought in the Union.
Right.
But the Union generals and white soldiers weren't very fond of it. They weren't. Many of them weren't. Some got used to them and found that they were great people. But in the South, you did not really hear the Southerners complaining about the blacks, the freed and current slaves fighting with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, just want to point this out. There are large chunks of history, historical context that we have not been taught. And it all applies to this. Again, the Union and Confederate black soldiers had every right to be buried with the white ones side by side the way they fought.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it is so heartbreaking. And yet everyone wants to say it was only the South that was that bad. Where is Arlington Cemetery? Oh, yeah, Washington,
Right.
D.C. Where is that?
Yeah,
In the North.
exactly.
Anyone wants to argue me on that? I will sit down and have a nice long conversation with you. So, um, yeah. So it was officially desegregated and it really took a fucking executive order to do it. That's another sad part.
Right.
Meanwhile, the United Confederate Veterans, the UCV, identified Confederate graves around the Washington, D.C. area and successfully petitioned for the government to have those remains transferred to Arlington on June 6, 1900. Congress appropriated $2,500 for the removal and reinterment of these Confederate remains. By 1902, 262 Confederate bodies were interred in a specially designated section, Section 16. Now, again, I don't like disturbing the dead, but to disturb them, to put them in a more honorable site, I can accept. But what they did to Bedford Forest and digging him up and moving him to a less honorary site, that pisses me off. So, you know, we'll go from there. Um, they had a were interned in section 16. Unlike the orderly rows in the rest of the cemetery, graves of the Confederate section were arranged in concentric rings. Their headstones also look different. While having the same dimensions as regular government headstones, the Confederate headstones featured pointed tops. The cemetery added more Confederate graves over the years, eventually totaling to more than 400. On June 7th, 1903, the first Confederate Memorial Day ceremonies were held in Arlington Cemetery, Arlington's Confederate section. President Theodore Roosevelt sent a floral arrangement, beginning a tradition continued by nearly every U.S. president. In 2009, President Barack Obama modified the tradition, sending two wreaths, one for the Confederate Memorial, the other to Washington, D.C.'s African American Civil War Memorial. Okay, I can appreciate that, in honor of the U.S. colored troops. In 1906, with Secretary of War William Howard Taft's approval, which didn't he go on to become President
Yes. Yes, he
Taft?
did.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The United Daughters of the Confederacy, a hereditary organization of Southern women, began raising funds to erect a memorial, the one we know now. Um, a memorial in the Confederate section. Through such voluntary civic organizations, women led many late 19th and early 20th century efforts to commemorate wars and to mourn the dead. And in so doing, the women gained influence in public life, even before they won the right to vote. Wow, that is right.
Mm-hmm.
Women didn't get the right to vote until what, the 60s?
No, not the
Oh,
60s.
the
19.
50s?
No, they got the right to vote in 19. Oh gosh, was it 15?
That's how. Oh, well, either way, you know,
Here, I'll look that up.
I
That's
could care
pretty.
less about some of these women's rights, but, I'm glad they got it.
Right, right.
Congrats. I'm more focused on,
I know. Go ahead.
further
I'll look it
back.
up. I'm looking it up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Um, even before they had the right to vote. And another example of the women's commemorative efforts, the National Society of Colonial Dames of America was responsible for creating the Spanish American War Memorial. Unveiled in 1914, the Confederate Memorial was designed by noted American sculptor Moses Jacob Ezekiel, a Confederate veteran. He and the first Jewish graduate of a Virginia Military Institute. And let's not forget all of the other amazing things he accomplished in his life that I read at the beginning. If you missed it, go back, catch it. This guy had an amazing, amazing life. Um, The elaborate designed monument offers a nostalgic, mythologized version of the Confederacy, including highly sanitized depictions of slavery. It was not sanitized. Standing on a 32-foot tall pedestal, a bronze classical female figure crowned with olive leaves represents the American South. She holds a laurel wreath, a plow stock, and a pruning hook with a biblical inscription at her feet. They have beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. The statue stands on a pedestal of four cinerary urns, one for each year of the war, and is supported by a frieze with 14 shields, one for each of the 11 Confederate states that border and the border states of Maryland and Kentucky and Missouri. 13 to 32 life-sized figures depicted mythical gods alongside Southern soldiers and civilians. Two of these figures are portrayed as African Americans: an enslaved woman depicted as a mammy holding an infant child of a white officer, and an enslaved man following his owner to war. They did not get forced to fight in the war.
Crazy B, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize. You were correct. African American women did not get the full right to vote until 1965. Uh,
Um, I
I
want you to
all
know that the Daughters of the Confederacy are black and white women combined.
Yes, uh, women were given the right to vote in 1919 from the women's suffrage movement, and however, that was really not passed through until 1920. However, from
Hmm.
that point until 1965, African American women ran into many problems with being able to vote.
Vote.
So
Yep.
you were right in the
When it finalized all women could vote
correct.
was the 50s or 60s.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, it was 1965 when the Voting Rights Act that all African Americans were granted the full right to vote, but the fight began in the 1800s alongside the women's suffrage movement. So
Okay. I
that,
appreciate the update.
yeah, that was good information to know because, again, here's some misinformation out there that, women had the right to vote by 1920. However, African American women did not. So, in many cases, so it's good history lesson. Thank you, Crazy B.
I'm glad to be able to help. Um, oh, the enslaved man following his owner to war. An inscription in Latin phrases Victrix causa dis place. I am not good at Latin. I am so sorry. The victorious cause was pleading to the gods, but the lost cause to Cato. But lost the cause to Cato. I'll read the English. Sorry, I cannot do Latin today. Um, construes the South secession as a noble lost cause. It was. They lost a war that was desperately and was unnecessarily fought. Lincoln should have just let them secede, but he needed their income. He needed their money. He needed to tax them and tariff them and everything else to keep the North industrialized. And it was not about keeping slavery in effect. Actually, by the time of the Civil War, most
And if
slaves
they
had
would have
been freed.
and if they would have seceded, what would have happened to the North? They
The
would have
North would have
collapsed.
struggled to have the money to keep the industry going.
Right? Would they have collapsed though? do you think?
Possibly. Economically, it is a possibility it could have happened.
And imagine where the country would be right now if that
But
would have,
the
if,
South, if they did secede,
right?
would have kept with the agricultural aspect, but because of inventions like the cotton gin and stuff, and I don't give a shit what anyone says, that didn't mean more slaves were in the field. It helped sharecroppers who were in the fields with the slaves. It
Okay.
helped the Irish slaves and everything to process the cotton faster. And then shortly after, we started getting tractors and automatic picking machines and stuff like that, where they were no longer needed and they would have been freed within decades, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was already going out the door, it was on its way out. It wasn't as prominent as people think. Not everyone in the South owned slaves. Actually, only 1%
Right.
of Southerners ever owned slaves. And
Right.
you want to talk about more slave ownership? Look at South America. Look at
Correct.
Haiti.
Right. Look at it. Yeah. Look at the Arab countries. Yeah.
Yes. I
And
just
that's
want to point this out to people.
right. And that's going on today. It has not ended. It is this what Crazy B is saying and what I'm saying. It is going on today.
There is slavery still going on in the
Today.
world, despite what everyone wants to tell you.
Correct.
Not necessarily in America or stuff like that. Many parts of Africa, the
Yeah.
Middle East,
Yeah.
Asia,
Yes.
slavery is still very much in full
In fact,
swing.
that's right. And people don't want to believe it.
Hmm. They do not want to believe it. So I want to make this as a eye opener. This entire video to be an eye opener to the fact that all these people screaming about how bad America and Britain are for slavery, they forget that it
That
was
we were.
started in Africa.
That's correct.
Slavery, the North American slave trade wasn't started by North Americans. It was started by Africans who wanted to make money and get
Correct.
shiny, cool things like
Right.
mirrors.
Yep.
So, um, how much more of this do I have to go? Not much. Okay, I can get through this. I can get through this. Um,
You can do it.
so, um, do-do-do-do. Okay, this narrative of the lost cause, which romanticized the pre-Civil War South, did not romanticize it. It depicted it in a more accurate fashion. Um, sorry.
You're
Um,
okay.
and denied the horrors of slavery. Yes, slavery bad. We should not own other people. We should pay them for their work. We all agree on this now. But many slaves did not have to go buy their own food. They didn't have to go buy their own clothing. They didn't have to pay for their own medical care. That was all provided by the owner of the plantation. He took on those living costs in return for the work they
But
did.
yes, but that isn't depicted, I don't think, in movies like Roots, where they're just
Roots was not
shitty.
even a okay, here's the funny thing about Roots. It was not a true story. It
Right.
was fictional.
Right.
Every aspect of that story was fictional, but people think it's a
It's true.
biographical story.
Correct. Correct. And so you're saying that they were taken care of. However, that movie that was out that was like a huge hit bestseller depicts it as, they were beaten, abused, women were
Some were.
are
No, I
yeah,
will say some
yeah,
were
right,
horribly mistreated,
right,
but not all.
right.
Not all. And I want to add this to Crown Target. Um, I covered that and I got in trouble on a couple of platforms for the way I worded it.
Right.
There was a human rights committee chair who got arrested recently for having a slave.
Yes. We covered
We
that.
talked
Correct.
about that.
Yes, we did.
I got in trouble for it.
Mhm.
Let's just say, yeah. So, and again, I'm not saying slavery was right or it's something we should do.
Are
I
you
am
there,
not
Crazy B?
saying. Oh, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Oh,
Oh, tell me I
bugger.
lost her.
Okay, that's not good. Uh oh,
Mhm. Crazy
what happened?
B, where are you? Are we
I'm still
having technical
here.
difficulties?
Oh, what just happened?
Uh-oh. What is she doing?
I'm still
Dun, dun,
here. Evidently, D
dun,
can't
dun,
hear
dun,
me.
dun.
So I'm going to go ahead and
La la
try to
la
continue
la
reading.
la la
Um,
la. Where is
Let me send her a
she?
message in DM.
Oh, I can't. Oh, that
Um,
isn't going to work on my tablet. Okay, we'll have to
uh-oh.
go to Discord. Where
Whoops,
are
wrong person.
you?
1 second while I let her know.
I can't hear you. And luckily, I'm not swearing. You can't hear me, but we can hear you. Leave and come back. Well, thank goodness I wasn't swearing or saying anything bad. I'll be back.
All righty. Um, so on with this. So because of that narrative, it romanticized the South and denied the horrors of slavery, fueled white backlash against Reconstruction and the rights of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments had granted to African Americans. This image of faithful slave embodied in the two figures on the memorial appeared
Good
widely in
afternoon. Are we
American
back? Are we back?
popular culture. Yes, I can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We had technical difficulties. I think Techno Ghost was in the house.
I believe so at this
All right.
point.
I'm sorry, babe, for all of that, but that was pretty funny. Go
Oh, yeah.
ahead.
So it led to the two figures appeared widely in American popular culture during the 1910s through the 1930s, perhaps most famously in the 1939 film Gone with the Wind. Again, slaves are not feeble minded toddlers in adult bodies. They were highly intelligent. Many created music and art and inventions and stuff that we use even to this day. The music you hear was like the art, the just the talent and the cooking that they brought to our culture in America. I don't want to hear that they had to be saved from somebody. If they wanted bad enough, they could have found a way to fight back. Most of them felt they were being fairly treated for the work they provided. Just there were many who felt this was all fair. I mean, Harriet Tubman's own husband told her not to screw around and do this Underground Railroad, and he was a freed slave.
Mm-hmm.
She was still a slave, but allowed to marry and live in the home of her husband, who was a freed slave. But yet it was so bad. Seriously, make it make sense. So again, we can talk about this later, the depictions of what we were taught versus the reality. So
Right.
they're just mad that he depicted this in a very realistic fashion of what he lived through during the Civil War era. So, um, sculptor Moses Ezekiel was buried at the base of his creation in 1921 after being honored at the first funeral ceremony in the newly built Memorial Amphitheater. I will learn to pronounce it. Three other Confederate soldiers lie next to him: Lieutenant Harry C. Marmaduke, of the Confederate Navy, Captain John M. Hickey of the 2nd Missouri Infantry, and Brigade General Marcus J. Wright, who commanded brigades at battles of Shiloh and Chickamauga, Mauga. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I believe Chickamauga is in Georgia. I do know that because I did a little bit of research onto it. I still can't pronounce it right, but it's in Georgia. Um, the Confederate memorial officers an opportunity for visitors to reflect on the history and the meanings of the Civil War, slavery, and the relationships between military service, citizenship, and race in America. The memorials along the segregated United States colored troops' graves in Section 27 invite us to understand how politics and culture have historically shaped how Americans have buried and commemorated the dead. Um, oh, you're working? You're at town? Okay. You got to, I'm sorry, at work. Well, drive safely, get there safe, and we'll see you when you get there. Um, and I do want to point out that propaganda is part of why the Civil War was made to be as bad as it was. Especially the race relations. Um, Now, again, the North treated former and current slaves, and even afterwards, generations down the road, colored people in America, the North treated them just as bad, if not worse, than the South in many aspects. And I can dig into that much later if anyone wants me to. I will gladly dive deep into that for you guys. But it all has shaped how we have become to where we are today. And this is also, again, part of why we see this revenge racism that we are going through, where people are out there hating white people, not because they've done something wrong to them, but some guy 100 and something odd years ago
Did
has
something just
did
yeah,
something that
uh-huh,
they perceived as evil, but
right.
don't have both sides of the story to judge from.
Mhm.
So, again, that is kind of why we have the racial tensions we have. Honestly, the 1980s and early to mid 90s, I'd even say up until 2000, race issues were pretty much non existent. And I'm not talking from my perspective, I'm talking from all the black people I knew and was welcomed in their home, my stepfather and so many others. It was almost non existent at the time I was growing up. So I would honestly say the closest we got to killing racism, stuff like that, was the 1980s and 90s. But
I would have
then
to or
it
I'd
got
have to argue that'd probably be the later 80s. Uh,
I think later 80s
yeah.
would I can agree, mid 80s to the
Yeah, mid-80s
going
maybe
forward.
on up. Um, 'Cause, I grew up during as a young kid during the
The
race
riot era.
riots, but,
Yes.
in high school, we talked about that previously, how bad it was, to be in school. So,
But in
I
my
would
childhood youth, I never saw racism.
Mhm.
Even though I was raised in the country, there were black people there, just so
Right,
you know. Even in the '80s, there were black farmers all over the world,
right.
and I never had a problem with them.
Mm,
Never had a problem with my classmates from India, whose
right,
parents moved here to be doctors.
right,
I don't have a problem with this kind of stuff. I was not raised to look at skin color and decide then and there what to think about the person. I was
right.
raised to get to know everyone.
Mhm.
And then we're seeing the reverse now, where we are all judging by skin color, mostly to demonize white people.
Right. I would
And that drives me nuts.
and that is still going on today.
Mm, that's all we hear about. White man
Exactly.
bad, white
Right.
woman evil, unless she's
Uh-huh.
hating herself for being white and
Correct.
bending down and kissing the boots.
Right.
You don't have to do that to prove you're not a racist. And if you think if someone tells you you have to, that person needs serious mental help.
Mhm.
I don't have to prove anything. But why don't you sit down and we start talking about all the fun times we've had in our lives? Your story, my story, what we've all gone through, what we like, what we don't like.
Right.
Let's have those conversations instead of you're white, you're automatically entitled.
Mhm.
I got two middle fingers for you if that's all you think. I will gladly sit down and talk to you, but if you come at me with that attitude, I got two middle fingers.
Yep.
Come back when you're calm. So, the Confederate Memorial offers the opportunity for. Oh, I just read all this. So, nope, we don't need to finish. But I will post the links to these in the description when we're done. Um, and let me go ahead and pull up this video really quick. Um, whoops, wrong thing, wrong thing. There we go. Let's pull up this video and listen to this college age girl talk about how racist it is. And I want to point out, do you notice what color she is? Why is she telling everyone why it's racist? Why isn't it a great granddaughter of a former slave telling
Mm-hmm.
us why it's racist? Just want to point this out. So let's hit play. Um, oh, I don't think I had transitioned it. Yeah, I hadn't. Okay. Now you can see her up in this nice little corner. Yeah,
Oh,
why is she teaching us why this statue is racist? I want to know why it's her and not some special
right,
historian with an unbiased historical perspective
right.
telling us. It's a college girl.
Uh-huh. Of course it would
So
be.
let's
I
listen.
wonder if her first name's Karen.
No, it looks like her name is Sumiko Newman.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Yep. So let's listen to her little PowerPoint video on why the Confederate Memorial is racist.
Hi, my name is Sumiko Newman, and today I'm going to be talking about the Confederate Memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. Aside from a few instances within the last decade, the Arlington Monument has garnered little attention from the American public. This low profile may seem surprising considering the unapologetic pro-slavery and
Can you
pro-Confederate
turn that up, Crazy
ideology
B?
that can be witnessed from
It is as high as, oh no, it wasn't as high as it goes. I apologize.
That's
Let me
okay.
back it up a few
Yeah,
moments.
it's hard to
So
hear.
okay, here we
Thank
go.
you.
the cemetery. Aside from a few instances within the last decade, the Arlington Monument has garnered little attention from the American public. This low profile may seem surprising considering the unapologetic pro-slavery and pro-Confederate ideology that can be witnessed from all angles of the structure that I'm going to go into later in the presentation. Yet one must note the location. So the bodies of dead US soldiers hollowed these grounds, and this grants the monument an air of invulnerability. And so the sanctity of the cemetery exempted the Arlington Memorial from protest or desecration that many other Confederate monuments experienced throughout the country in the wake of Charlottesville. So this monument stands within the Confederate section of the Arlington National Cemetery in the center of over 400 Confederate graves arranged in rings. And I thought it was important to discuss the involvement of the UDC in the creation of the monument. The UDC is the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and now they're often called a cult of the lost cause. And the lost cause is integral to understanding this monument. And the lost cause can be understood as a myth of the Civil War that attempts.
I gotta pause this for a minute. I actually talk with people on Twitter X that are involved with the Daughters of the Confederacy.
I don't think they're a cult.
I don't think they're a cult either. But let's let this woman, young, not young, brainwashed woman, continue
Mm-hmm.
explaining her perspective.
To preserve the honor of the South by painting the war as unwinnable for the Confederacy from the start. And it was a conflict that was driven by states' rights and not by the preservation of slavery, as they believe the Union would want you to know. But most historians would say today that this is complete myth and a complete distortion of historical fact.
Bullshit.
So it is estimated that 450 monuments, markers, and buildings celebrating the Confederacy and figures like Robert E. Lee can be attributed to UDC efforts all around the country. So here you can see members of the UDC a few years after the monument was erected in 1914, celebrating Confederate Memorial Day in front of the statue in the cemetery. So the president of the Washington, D.C. division of the UDC at the time took it upon herself to request permission from Secretary Boris Taft to erect this monument in 1906. And prior to this, these concentric rings of Confederate graves that are in the Confederate section of Arlington National Cemetery just were the center of it was just a empty mound. So the UDC, along with other Confederate groups, believed that there needs to be something to fill that space. So the UDC had full control over this project without restriction. And that's interesting to note that in the early 20th century, that this group of women had full control of the large sum of money, an important piece of property. So in 1910, the UDC makes a contract with a Jewish Virginian sculptor named Moses Ezekiel to complete the monument. And so what he decides upon is this 32-foot structure. And the most prominent part of it is this frieze of over 30 life-size figures that wraps around the middle section of the monument. Because of time, I'm not going to go through every single figure and every single representation of the lost cause that can be seen, but instead I'm just going to focus on two main parts. So with this focus of the role of Southern women in the maintenance of the lost cause and its monuments, as can be seen through the UDC, I thought it was appropriate to talk about the fact that the Confederate Memorial features this large female figure at the top. And this large female figure is dressed in classical attire, and she is a personification of the South itself. And she holds a laurel wreath in her left hand in an offering to the Confederate dead that are below her. And then in her right hand, she holds a pruning hook, and at her feet is a plow. And together, this serves as a literal representation of a biblical quote that is inscribed beneath her.
I want to point out all of those things, the pruning hook and the plow, are representative of the culture of the South, which was agriculture.
Right.
They were farmers.
And because she had a biblical quote, that's a problem. What
I
they?
want to see if she reads the biblical
Yeah.
quote. Give me 1 second and then I'll
Okay.
pause it.
Okay.
And so in addition to this large depiction,
Oh, she doesn't even want to read the quote of what biblical verse they have on it.
What they weren't, they didn't believe in the Bible, or what, they were some type of heathen that they couldn't quote from the Bible or read the Bible. I mean, what's up with that? That's a whole different
Let me
twist
pull it
that
up right
she's right.
now.
Yeah, that's a whole different
It's
twist she's
I did read it
done.
before,
Yeah.
but I'm going to read it again. The quote was, "They have beat their swords into the plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks." So they put down their swords and they went back to agriculture.
Right. Wow.
How is that bad? Why did
Right.
she avoid pointing that out? By turning their swords into plows and their spears into pruning hooks.
Yeah. Because that
This is
doesn't put.
racist.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't put her in a positive light, does it? If she says that.
She's biased beyond
Exactly.
belief.
Exactly.
I see that as such a wonderful thing. Thank you guys for your service. We shall go back to farming the way we
Mm-hmm.
came, what we started with.
Right.
It is so heartbreaking that she can't even read it. And I want to know where in the Bible that came from. Hold on. I want to pull that up really quick. What part of the Bible it came from? Um Which chapter? Um the verse is from Isaiah 2:4. And it's a symbolization of peace and the abandonment of violence, according to AI and what people interpret out of the Bible.
Wow.
So yeah, how horrible of Moses Ezekiel
Right.
for promoting peace and casting aside violence.
Mm.
Yeah, such a bad man. I love that she avoided talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's continue.
of a female South. There's a small personification of the South that's bent to the ground on the frieze. and she's only supported by grasping Athena, the goddess of war. And again, it's another ode to antiquity. Um,
Um, oh yes, that's right. They did have the various deities. Again, in combination with civilian humans and military soldiers interpreting between, all of it. So let's continue.
so she's twisted downward with her breast exposed, and she's holding onto a shield labeled the Constitution. And this is a very explicit representation of the belief held by the UDC and other supporters of the Lost Cause that the South was committed to constitutional principles and their society.
It was to constitutional principles. The Constitution literally was designed to protect us from an overbearing government. Literally written to protect us from tyrannical governments. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Athena, god of war, using a shield. The Constitution protects us from tyrants and war. Going to drive me nuts the way she's interpreting it because it's not the way it should be. Woosah. Hit play again.
Session was actually lawful, and um, it was
It
not about
was.
slavery, but instead about
Every state has the right to secede. We hear them talking about it now. The problem was Abraham Lincoln wanted their money, so he forced them at gunpoint to stay. Like a abusive husband holding his victim wife at gunpoint if she tries to divorce him. Same concept. Anyone? Seriously? Sorry. I'm going to shut up. I promise I'm going to try to make it more than 10 seconds.
constitutional granted state rights. And so, as this figure's positioned this awkward way and her skin is exposed, it told the viewer that during
Athena is in many statues with her skin exposed. Have you looked into Greek mythology? Has this girl looked into Greek mythology?
It's
Mm.
obvious she has not with the entire presentation she
No,
has.
she's trying to make it
Bias.
sound like the guy was sexist and hated women and had to make
Exactly.
sexualize her. No, Athena in ancient times had lots of skin exposed.
I know. I know.
Mm.
It's all right.
Okay, breathe, breathe,
Breathe.
breathe. When
Woosah.
you
Let us
combine cultural meanings into one statue, you have to look at all the
all the
cultures
pieces. Correct.
involved to
Uh-huh.
fully interpret it. Okay, I'm gonna breathe. I'm gonna breathe.
It's okay.
All right. I know I said I was gonna go more than 10 seconds. My
Mm-hmm.
bad.
the war, the South persisted, regardless of this vulnerability and innocent nature of the South that can be seen through a female figure. And next, I'm going to be talking about the two Black figures that are seen as propagandic messages of racial harmony under.
It was not
Oh,
propagandic. Oh my god.
it's all right.
Okay, I'm gonna let her run her mouth, but it is not propagandic. It is representation of what many Southerners lived through. Not all, but many. I'm going to breathe.
All right. It's okay. You'll get through it. Don't
At
stop.
least I made
Let
it
it go.
18 seconds this time. I made it
Okay.
18 seconds.
All
Or
right.
no,
Good
8.
job.
Oh, my
8,
bad. No, it
not
was 8,
18.
not
Wait,
18.
not
Oh,
18. Only 8.
bad.
Let's see what you
I'm
can do.
slapping my wrist. I'm
All
slapping my
right.
wrist.
For slavery in the South. So, first, there's a young Black man. He's wearing a kepi, and he marches within a group of white soldiers. It's important to note that the other men are armed around him, except for him. And this is because, or it's probably because, although they want to include a Black man to show that, to prove this idea that there was Black support of the Confederacy, which again is not historically backed up.
It is most definitely historically backed up. I can provide proof from
Calm down.
freed slaves,
Calm down.
letters, and biographies and books. It is very historically backed up.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Calm down. Count to 3.
Did you
Contact.
hear her lie right
I
there?
did. I
Flat
did.
out.
Calm down. It's all right. You'll be okay.
Hi, Brent. Hi, Brent. You need to go back and listen to me shredding some of this narrative all day.
It's all right.
Oh my
You'll be
god.
okay.
Hi,
Woosah.
Brent.
Give
I'm
us
trying
a
to woosah.
woosah.
I'm trying.
All
I'm gonna
right.
take a hit off my cigarette, get some caffeine.
There you go. Let us
Holy
pray.
shit, that pisses me off. There was no proof that black people supported the Civil War
Hmm.
in the Southern Confederacy. I want to go and
It's all right. You're going to get yourself upset. Calm down.
And this video, by the way, this video is from 2 years ago.
Oh, that's crazy.
Okay, let me breathe.
And she probably got an A off of it from her professor to boot.
Oh, I'm sure.
Uh huh.
But
Yep.
this is what I mean by I get riled up and I get really irritated by when these lies and propaganda go around.
But see,
Like,
that's the truth. That's what we're trying to expose is the propaganda that's being out there that people believe this, right? So this is out and
yes.
about, and it's not telling a true story. She's not even telling the truth in what's happening. She's skipping over major portions of what
In
what
major
happened.
context.
Correct.
Major context.
Right. Major, major,
I'm
major.
going to have to dig up all the posts. I had them bookmarked on my one account,
Okay.
which I don't have access to anymore. I will
Hmm.
have to go ask the historians to repull these posts
Okay.
so I can drop them as proofs.
Right.
Um, I do apologize. I had all the proofs backed up for this. For years, I have been saving them. But then, yeah, I can't go into too much detail as to why I cannot access the proofs, but
Let's just say if you think she's out of control here, my girl was out of control in other
not
places.
out of
But
control. I
no,
literally stated a factual opinion
I
that
know.
could be backed
But
up, not even an opinion, a factual statement,
right.
and it got
But
me in trouble.
right. But it
A
was
very
perceived. It
solid based factual statement with centuries of proof
right.
that got me in trouble.
Right. Because they didn't like it. That's the problem. They didn't like they. What? Who was that? You can't handle the truth. Who? What movie was that?
Oh god.
Remember that movie? You can't handle the truth. I.
Oh, I'm so riled up right now. I cannot think of it. This is a moment where Shoemaker would be great.
Yeah.
Um because he can do the movies really good.
Right.
But yeah, I'm livid
Oh,
about
that
this.
was Oh my gosh, that was that army movie. Eric just said A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men.
He just said, "Holy
Oh,
smokes!" You couldn't
hug
remember
him for me. Hug
who?
him for me for that
Yeah.
because I could not think
Yeah.
of it
Few
because
Good
I
Men.
am so riled
Yeah.
up about the
You
propaganda.
can't handle the truth. That's right. They can't. Crazy B.
They can't.
They
They
can't.
absolutely cannot handle any of it. So, um, this is why I have to laugh this stuff off. A lot of those people want you to get upset because you don't agree. It's not that I don't agree with them. They're not giving any factual statements to back up what she literally just said. There is no historical proof that slaves supported the Confederate Army. When I can go and pull letters, biographies, statements, after the war interviews of slaves that
They're
supported the Confederates. Holy cow. So,
okay. How
okay.
many more minutes of this to have to play so
About
we? All
one and a
right.
half, give or take. I'm going to
Woosah.
do my best.
All right. Woosah yourself.
I know because there's only 3 minutes left until I'm supposed to end this, but if I run a few
No,
minutes
it's
late, I
gonna
don't
go
care.
over. You know it's gonna go over. It
All
would
right, let's hit
probably
play.
wouldn't have if I wouldn't have stopped in, but on your
Oh,
first
it most likely would have continued. Yeah.
okay, on your first
Me
episode,
just
yeah,
ranting.
hit play. I'm gonna mute
All
cause
right.
Eric's making dinner, so I'll pop in.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, but excluding a weapon is a way to soothe fears of black male aggression. So he's included, but he's not included as an equal soldier. And next, well,
Uh, hold on. Black soldiers were fighting side by side in a few different battles, and there was an entire battle that was fought by black soldiers under a white, not general, next one down, whatever the, yeah, next rank down. My brain is not working. There was an entire battle fought by black soldiers against white Union troops. They made a movie about it. Denzel Washington's in it. Um, but let's continue. I can't think of the title. I'm sure some movie expert will bring it up, but yes, it was actually the troops were led by Bedford Forrest, who was dragged out of his burial place and moved because people's feelings didn't got hurt by him being buried there. So, and then let's not forget his wife suffered too, and so did his horse. I believe it was his horse. Yeah. Memphis, Tennessee had an issue with him. So let's continue. I'm sorry.
one can see an enslaved woman with a young child pulling at her dress, and then she's also receiving another baby from a soldier who's presumably leaving to fight. And
So if black people were so inferior, why would a white person trust the black people to care for their children while they are away? Yeah, makes perfect sense. Idiot. Sorry. Here we go. I promise.
Ezekiel on the sculpture is depicting her as a mammy figure, which is a character that existed as a dominant presence in antebellum culture and beyond, in films, books, all forms of media. And so these two scenes are quintessential.
The term mammy describes a person similar to that of a nanny. The people, especially the famous actors and actresses who have nannies raising their kids while they go work. Um, yeah, we still use these people. They just get paid. Where this woman was given a home, clothing, food, medical care if needed, in return for raising the kids. But, heaven forbid we should talk about that.
Examples of the faithful slave image that held a prominent status within this Confederate myth of the lost cause.
It's not a myth, per
Now,
se.
it is important to know that actually within the next 2 years, as a result of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2021, this monument will be taken down. The monument is an
It should have never been taken down. And Trump has restored it. So, sorry, sweetheart. It's getting restored. You did all this presentation for nothing.
Yeah, except in 2028, if a Democrat gets in, then it could
It could
it
be
could go
lost again.
again. And this is the stuff that Congress needs to take up. That there should be a law passed saying that no statues, no grave markers should be permitted to be removed from Arlington Cemetery or any
Or any
uh,
other national
correct
cemetery.
any of the national cemeteries, parks, whatever. None of it should be removed.
Oh, don't get me started on the national park ones that have been removed. Oh my God, D.
Well,
Hold on. Let me pull up a number on how many Confederate statues have been removed in the last 4 years. Um, at least hundreds, if not thousands.
so we have no accurate number.
4 had been removed in 2019. After George Floyd, 94 removals.
Of course,
2021 was 17. 2022 was 16. Hold on, there's 6 more rows. Um, let me see if I can get it to just do that. Oh, it takes me to here. Um, it doesn't say. I would have to hold on. I gotta scroll down to all of this stuff.
Is
Okay,
is that something you could is that something we could share in the
it's
description?
coming from Wikipedia,
Okay.
so I can share it um in the description, but there in eight from 1865 to 2009 there was only 2 removals. From 2009 to 2014 only 3. 2015 after the Charleston church shooting there was
Right.
4. 2016 was 4 more. 2017 was 36. 2018 was 8. Now, mind you, those are all under Obama, mostly under Obama,
Right.
except in 2017, which was under Trump, and I don't know why he let that happen. Um, no, oh, this isn't from federal only. This is state and local removals too. He might not have had a say. Okay. So in 2018, 8 were removed. In 2019, 4 removed. The 94 after George Floyd, the 17 in 2021, and the 16 in 2022 that were noted or at least picked up on. That's insane. Do you notice the uptick from the 2000s? Let me drop this. Oh, good thing you made it to work. Ah, I like that. JJ says the chick's presentation was lazy research. Yes, because that's what they're taught. That is what they are taught at this time. Is all the laziness of this. And it just burns me to my core knowing
I
this
think
happened.
anybody has any idea that this upsets you. None whatsoever.
Just in case you didn't notice,
Yeah,
it is good to reiterate.
it is. That's
Um,
true. I don't, but I
it is
do.
good to
I don't believe
reiterate.
anybody has any idea that this is a hot topic for you.
Oh God, I do apologize for the side tangents. I really do, but this is stuff that is so important that our children need to learn. Let me get through this last 30 seconds.
Oh, you think you
Well,
can? You think
not
you can?
really, but let's try. Let's
Okay.
try.
Asset of the Department of Justice. And this new legislation says that any item that's an asset of the DoD, which this is, that honors or commemorates the Confederacy must be addressed, and in this case, must be removed from the public. It's not known what's going to happen to the monument, if it's going to be put in a museum or destroyed, who knows what, but within the next few years, it will be removed from the cemetery and will no longer have a place in the American public.
Um, it needs to be in the American public,
I
and
just
she
said
can kiss
that
my ass.
that is such bullshit. Whoever determined that, whoever made that decision. I mean, I'd really like to know: was it one person? Was it two people? Was it a committee? Who did this? You know, who made the decision?
I love what JJ just said.
I'm
Sorry,
ranting
B has
here.
gone a little crazy by this chick's research. At least Crazy B isn't a lazy bee.
Right.
Amen.
She's a busy bee, JJ.
Busy and crazy, never lazy.
Right.
Oh my God. Hold on, I'm sending a message. Uh, I can't type because I'm agitated by this person.
Take your time. It's all right. We're
By the
ready
way,
to
Crazy
hear.
B can give me a hug too because I knew a few good men reference. Oh yeah, but you weren't able to type because you were driving.
Right, right.
Virtual hug sent to you. Virtual hug on its way. When you get it, accept it. Oh, I just get so riled up when history is misconstrued. At least give us both perspectives. Don't
Right.
push one over the other.
And I
Give us both perspectives, please.
and I hope that's what we try to do on questions that need answers as well as wrecked sisters. At least we try or make an attempt to present all sides, and then you'll hear from what we about what we have to say, maybe our opinions, whether we agree or disagree. But we do try to get all points across.
My ex-husband comes in and says, "I can hear you're screaming outside." Yep, we're discussing serious.
There
This
you
is why Moses Ezekiel has been being forgotten,
right.
because he was a Confederate soldier and because he supported the freedom of the states from the federal government, and that what Lincoln did was wrong. So, good for him. I'm proud of him.
Mhm.
And I'm glad he stood his ground till the day he died on that too.
Right.
I gotta see what this is. Hold on one moment. Um, hold on. Wait, what's this say?
Mute your mic or mic your mute.
I'm trying to separate two papers really fast.
Gotcha.
They denied my MRI.
Oh, you're kidding. How could they do? We'll talk about that after we finish. That's crazy.
Even with physical therapy, they denied it. I
Wow.
might have slipped a disc. And they're saying they're denying it because your lower back pain travels to your hip and or leg. An image study was asked for. We cannot approve this request because imaging can be done when results of detailed exam include your nervous system show a reason for imaging. This exam um, must have been performed after your symptoms started or changed. Oh, for the love of God.
I'm
See
sorry.
why I hate the medical industry being turned
Yes.
into bureaucrats?
Yep. I'm sorry,
Oh,
crazy.
wait till Faye hears this. Wait till Faye and Arby hear this too. Oh, I'm going to be chatting with you guys in voice chat in a little bit.
I know it's okay.
We'll just go into our DMs and do a little chat on this. And
Yep.
yeah, we're just going to.
Say some words. You think we're gonna say some words?
I'll try. I'll
Okay.
try.
All right. Let's finish up. How many seconds are left?
Oh, we're already over. This is
Oh,
done.
it's
It's
done.
actually done. The
Okay.
video's done.
Cool. Good. We don't
So
have
I
to
can close
look
out for the day. Um,
well,
because yeah,
I think that some of the areas you discussed, Crazy B, warrant some other, uh, maybe one or two segments of of the history that we talked about.
it's funny how one artist led to such an elaborate contextual history.
Right.
They are erasing his work
Correct.
because he was a Confederate soldier.
Well, that, and I don't think just because he was a Confederate soldier, I think it's because what he represented and what he stood for. And they don't want people to know that, right?
Yeah,
I think,
it hurts
yeah.
our children and our future generations
Hmm.
by doing this.
Well,
And
not,
like I've said, I'm even against moving the statues of Mussolini and Stalin. Yes, they were horrible, evil people, but we need those statues to remind us what not to do again.
yes, I don't disagree. I just have, my issue, but,
I know, and you're entitled to your issue and your reasoning,
right. But,
but I still stand strongly on
they're
it's
that,
not just the history, it's the artist, the art who put into it their money, their time, their energy,
well, I will tell you a lot of, artists that have done paintings, like on the side of buildings or,
the
wall.
murals.
Yeah, the murals, a lot of them have been painted over.
Well, that happens in general over the time.
Right, right,
I love graffiti artists. Oh my
yeah,
god, they are so talented.
right.
I love graffiti artists. But Oh, Jazz, here they are, sweetie. I found them. I don't know why you need my grippers, but bring them back when you're done. I have those little gripper things when I can't bend to pick things up
You can get it.
because I do not pick things up and put them down. I have a tendency of dropping them and saying, shit, someone else come help me.
Right, right. But you did that. Was a very good.
So,
That was a very interesting presentation. I'm glad I popped in and just didn't ignore the situation. I learned a
but
lot.
I wanted to cover both aspects of what the man's life was and also what these idiots are saying about him.
Right, right.
So, I
It's sad.
definitely wanted to cover both. And you guys are free to believe Crazy Chick, who didn't do a lot of research
Yeah,
and didn't even research the different deities to understand what they represent and why their skin was showing.
right.
Didn't grasp the concept of the Constitution being a shield to protect us citizens. No, totally bypassed her completely.
Yep.
But, you guys are free to believe it. This is just a more thorough breakdown of the artist, what he represented, what he believed, and how talented this man was.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the sake of my voice, because I have been talking very loud and passionately, I think I'm going to not talk so much about this after the fact. And if anyone does have anything that can absolutely prove me wrong and not be countered, like her little, there's no historical proof slaves support the Confederacy, I got news for you. Please, if you can send me something irrefutable that I cannot pull something up about to refute it, feel free. Until then, I appreciate any links or further topic advice, further details I may have missed in covering this. Links, stories, family history. Oh my god, I love genealogy. So, that's another thing that might be fun to talk about one day. Not necessarily my genealogy, but anyone who's willing to come in and go through their family history, I would absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my family history would lead to people in my family that I don't want contact with finding me, and I don't want jack shit to do with them. So we're not going to cover my history.
Right.
But anyone else, feel
Eric.
free. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and do the outro and the live stream, and I will catch you guys
On
probably
weekend.
Monday.
Yep. Monday.
So,
Crazy
yep.
Bees available Monday and Wednesday for, as I mentioned earlier, almost any various topic that you could be interested in. Everything's fair game. Uh, I think she did a great job. Uh, this
I
was
still could have provided more proof to my
like,
arguments, but I didn't think I was going to have to put some of my
like
arguments forward with that video.
yeah, with what was presented there. And again, remember, what you see is what you get.
Oh, I know where you guys can find them. Join my Discord server, Friend Zone. I have a forum that has all kinds of stuff about history being erased.
Yes. Did you drop? Can you drop the link in the comments section,
Oh,
please?
yes, I can drop the link to my Discord in the comments. One moment, please, as you like to say. And
Okay.
yes, you can sit there and scream, talk to a person while I'm doing this.
You don't like my one moment, please. Technical
No,
support
it
is.
sounds too AI automated.
Oh,
So
so I'm pretty
my
good at that,
sorry,
huh?
but
I could be
yes,
a. I
my
could
sorry
be a.
but's gonna sit there and say, talk to a person,
Uh huh.
talk to a person, talk to a representative,
Yep.
person.
Yeah, I always
There's
do
the
that.
link to my Discord, folks. If you want to jump in, I do have a forum dedicated to what things about history that are not being represented the way they should be. And
And,
I do have links in there about slaves who supported the Confederacy.
and may I ask, do they also have access to our combined Rex Sisters
Um,
information as well? Or is
I
that strictly?
do. I can put it up again. I do normally post these things,
I mean, but
but
all I'm asking is if they come in under questions that need answers, will they see all
oh,
of the other information available?
on my server, yeah, they should see it.
Okay. So
And
they'll
on
see.
we
Yeah.
just don't have me linked to the, Rex Sisters stuff. I gotta
Well,
link them all up.
okay, we can do
There's a
that
way to do
later.
that, but we'll do it later because it
Yeah.
requires setting up an announcements channel where our lives will be announced, and then I can have it link, and that way it goes
Right.
across, and then we can have a channel with everyone's links on both servers.
Okay. But if they go in, if I come in under questions that need answers, I will see all of the other areas under. Oh no, that's under the friend zone.
That's under Rex Sisters,
So it's
not
under.
Friend Zone. Yeah,
Okay.
Friend Zone is mostly just for fun stuff. I don't
Gotcha.
usually do much with the
Okay.
podcast on there
I was
other than
just, yeah,
announce
I
it.
was double
Um
checking. So if I come in under
yeah,
questions that need answers, I'll see Wrecked Sisters and Insomniac Theater, although nothing's there right now. But
yeah, I don't have
okay,
Friend Zone linked on the podcast stuff where
gotcha.
in the Rex Sisters we have the separate ones. We
Okay,
need to pin we need to
gotcha.
put links to those different things,
Okay,
and I can carry over some of my forum posts.
okay,
If anything, I will carry them
cool.
over into questions that need answers or create a forum of proofs
Right.
to what I say.
Okay.
We can do that as well. There's
So
a lot I
again,
could
yeah.
do to
So
save people the headache, but as of right now, Friend Zone is the only place I have my proofs.
okay. So that requires again technical support from our executive producer, who will
Who's
continue.
also the editor
Right.
and the creative director and
Wait, hold on. Creative director goes to both of us as well as
well, yeah,
co-host, and I would be one of, and we're both executive researchers, and I am the executive in training. Uh so we are executive of everything. So what you see is what you get. But Crazy B, you did a great job coming out of the gate uh for the new rollout uh
I
this week.
picked a good topic.
Yes, you
But it's
did.
something I also knew something about beforehand. So
And that's fine.
because of
That's
my
fine.
knowledge, I was able to sift through the propaganda faster.
Right.
I knew right where to go to
Right.
find an accurate source. And so that's why, again, you would hear me chime in extra context where they didn't
Mhm.
mention this here or they didn't talk about that there. And it was all important to this and that. So, yeah, if you guys want a nice long lecture about this, I mean, and this is just me throwing something together with 2 articles and a video. I could have gone further in depth and done a whole PowerPoint with the different statues he's created and all these other people that are talked about and influenced his life and everything. I could have done a full biography,
So in other
but we
words,
would have
you
been
would
here
have
for
been
three
working on
weeks.
your in other words, you would have been working on your doctoral thesis if you would have
Yeah,
done that. Yes.
yeah, but I'm
Okay.
not doing that. I'm presenting enough to get y'all started, and you're free to go and research more.
Right.
I was contemplating using Wikipedia just as the only source to get this done quickly, but then I'm like, that is so lazy.
Right.
No. And I did
What
dig
Lazy
in.
Girl did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would have been arguing Wikipedia as wrong.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
that would
figured I'd do it the
have been
right way.
that would have been ugly with
Well, but again,
Wikipedia.
we're
Yeah.
talking, I took how many years I've known about him and his different works and stuff, and I combined it into a 2.5 hour video by the time we're done here.
Right.
I combined it into a 2 hour segment.
And
So,
I think you did him justice.
dang, I was hoping you would look into all of this for me. Yeah, you could go look for some of yourself, Brent. I know you're up most of the night. Put down the UFC and MMA for a couple hours. We love you. You're awesome. And by the way, I'm sorry I missed UFC last weekend. I'm aiming for this weekend. I had a rough week. This weekend we're back on track. So, but yeah, you could put UFC down for a minute and go research. I'll
Mhm.
point you in the right directions. And I know you're joking, and I know you know I'm joking. So um, that's just the joys of
He needs help. I'll get you the help that you need, Brent. I'll get you the help you need.
Brent has known me for quite a long time because of Discord, and the thing that bonded us was UFC and dark humor.
Mm.
How dare
How
you
dare
say that
you?
about
How dare you?
UFC?
All right, Crazy Bee. You have a good one. I will see you tomorrow, and
Yep.
congratulations. You did a great job, and got people in a little bit of a hopefully understanding about the
Yep.
propaganda. And when they hear things, I think it's they need to question it. So,
Question a lot.
uh huh. So you have a good evening. The boss has made some dinner, and I'm gonna go eat it while it's hot.
Oh, JJ says, so glad Dee was able to wrangle in the crazy bee from being
Oh
too
yeah,
crazy.
you're welcome,
Yes.
JJ. Yeah, she gets a
I'll
little
try
bit.
to be here on time tomorrow. Yep, we'll
Yeah,
be on Rex Sisters tomorrow.
right. She gets a little bit passionate about her subject material. So,
I
uh,
love history.
yeah,
And I
but
happen to have a good reason to talk about this artist from the era of history I adore the most.
mm-hmm,
Not because
exactly.
of slavery, but because of how it impacted the world so much.
Right. Yep.
So,
We. That's a whole nother topic we'll get into. So,
mhm.
all right. You have a good evening, there, Crazy Bee.
Yep, you do the same. And thank you to everyone. I'm going to hit my outro. I'm going to go take some deep breaths, drink a little bit of tea for my throat so it doesn't hurt any further than it already does. Use my inhaler because I'm short of breath from
Oh,
such a passionate,
don't
long
start.
conversation.
Don't start. Don't.
Hey, you think I'm bad? Go check out the channel Rageaholic.
Okay. Mm, okay.
Razor Fist. That dude puts me to shame. I'm not nearly good. So now that's someone I would like to team up with.
Yeah,
Ooh,
there
if
you
I could
go.
get Razor Fist to team up one time for questions that need answers,
That
and
would
we
be
just
sweet.
tear apart the propaganda through history.
Uh huh.
All right, we'll see you. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Here's the outro. Love you guys. See you guys on tomorrow on Rex Sisters, and later tonight on Common Censored.
Have a good one.
Yep, I'm gonna see what I can work out with Lady Hamilton as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's an awesome idea.
All right. I'm muting myself for the moment to put the outro on, and I'm going to go end the streams. Thank y'all. So, with that, I thank you all for showing up, being here. And as usual, stay safe, stay sane, stay sober. I truly appreciate those who showed up and those who are going to be watching later on. I will catch y'all on the next one.